Sometimes what we call nothing is simply everything we stopped noticing. Once upon a time, in a quiet valley where dawn mist rose like breath from the earth, there lived a farmer named Arun. He wasn't poor, but he believed he was. Every morning he walked his fields with a tired heart, muttering about rain that came too early or too late, crops that grew too little, neighbors who seemed to have more. His wife often smiled gently and said, "We have enough." But he'd shake his head. To him, enough always sounded like surrender. He dreamed of a larger farm, richer soil, a life where he could finally rest without worry. Yet every evening as the sun painted the hills gold, all he could see was what he lacked. Arun worked harder than anyone in the valley. He plowed earlier, sowed deeper, harvested longer. But the more he did, the heavier his heart grew. When he passed his neighbor's orchard, he saw fruit where his field had weeds. When he walked through the market, he saw smiles where his hands were cracked. And each night, when his family gathered for supper, he saw the same meal, rice, lentils, and a simple stew, and wondered what it would be like to taste abundance. He tried to be grateful, but gratitude felt too small a word for a man who wanted more. And so, his days grew louder with complaint, his nights quieter with emptiness. One afternoon, as he mended a fence along the edge of his land, an old traveler stopped by, a man with dust on his sandals and kindness in his eyes. The stranger asked for water, and Arun led him to the well. The traveler drank slowly, then looked out over the farmer's fields. "These lands are generous," he said softly. "They must love you very much." Arun frowned. "Love? They give me trouble more than they give me grain." The old man chuckled. "Ah," he said, "then perhaps they are trying to teach you something." He set down his cup and motioned toward the distant hills. "There's a hermit who lives by the stone bridge beyond that ridge. People say he can see the worth of things others overlook. If you have time, you might ask him what your land is trying to tell you." And with that, the traveler bowed and continued on his way. Days later, curiosity outweighed frustration, and Arun went to find the hermit. He found him near the river, mending a clay pot beside a fire. The hermit was quiet for a long time, then said, "Tell me, farmer, what do you own?" Arun began listing. A house, some fields, a few animals, tools, a cart, a little savings. The hermit nodded. "And what owns you?" Arun blinked. "What do you mean?" The old man smiled faintly and lifted the clay pot. It had a long crack down its side. "This pot leaks," he said, "so I keep it by the garden. When I fetch water, half of it spills. But the flowers along the path bloom from its waste." He poured water from the pot, and sure enough, the trail beside him glistened, every drop giving life to wild blossoms. "The pot thinks it's broken," the hermit said, "yet because of that, it feeds beauty others cannot see. Tell me, farmer, what if your cracks are not your curse, but your gift?" Arun returned home thoughtful but unchanged, at least not yet. A week later, a storm tore through the valley. Trees fell, fences broke, and many farmers lost their crops. Arun ran to his fields expecting ruin, and found, to his shock, that the low land he always cursed for flooding had caught the rain. It had become a shimmering pond where his ducks swam, feeding on the grain washed down from higher fields. By sunset, he realized his worst land had saved his season. The others would have to buy feed, he would not. He knelt by the edge of that pond, muddy hands, tired eyes, and for the first time in years, he laughed. Not out of triumph, but out of recognition. From that day on, Arun began to look differently. He still worked, still worried sometimes, but he started to see. He saw how the old tree by his house shaded his family in the noon heat. He noticed how the cracked walls caught the morning light just right. He heard his children's laughter at dusk and thought, maybe wealth sounds like this. The world had not changed. He had. Gratitude does not make a man rich. It simply reminds him that he already is. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Perhaps you, too, have walked your own fields through work, dreams, or days that feel too small and thought, when I have more, I'll finally rest. But maybe what you seek isn't waiting beyond the horizon. Maybe it's growing quietly beneath your feet. Sometimes, life hides its wealth in ordinary soil, in the hands that hold yours, the breath you forget to thank, the mornings that arrive without asking. Look closely. The cracks in your days may be watering unseen gardens. If this story found you at the right time, like the video, carry its calm with you. And share when you meet someone who's forgotten their own riches. Remind them, the heart that counts blessings never runs out of treasure.